to order the meeting of the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee. We will begin with the approval of the minutes from December 13th, 2017. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. And now we will turn to the report of the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee Chair. So good afternoon, and thank you for attending tonight's meeting of the Voter Assistance Advisory Committee. We have several items on the agenda this evening, so I will try to keep my remarks brief. The agency is celebrating Black History Month throughout February. Later this week, the CFB staff will enjoy a screening of Eyes on the Prize, the critically acclaimed documentary on the civil rights movement. On our social media platforms, we are highlighting the legacies of African American voting rights advocates. This week, we're honoring Fannie Lou Hamer, who emerged as a leader and powerful voice in the movement through her efforts to register African American voters in Mississippi through the Freedom Summer Project, despite the threat of severe violence. I love her quote, "I am sick and tired of being sick and tired." Yeah. As we honor the work of past heroes, the fight to protect our voting rights continues in our own time. New York City Votes, with our partners in the Vote Better NY campaign, launched a petition last week that calls for key election reforms like early voting, automatic voter registration, and other essential voting rights protections. We will hear more about the campaign and our voter day plans in a moment, but I want to ask everyone here tonight and watching the live stream to take this simple stand for better elections in our state. Go to votebetterny.org and add your name to the petition now. On a personal note, I have enjoyed productive meetings with Oneida Coward-Mayers, the CFB's Director of Voter Assistance, and her staff as I acquaint myself to my new role as chair of this committee. I appreciate all of the guidance I have received thus far, and I look forward to working together with all of you in the coming months and years. In particular, I look forward to using my professional experience within the organized labor movement to advance the nonpartisan mission of this committee and NYC Votes. Organized labor is made up of working families who care deeply about New York. And if we can find new ways to reach their extensive membership in New York, we will be another step closer to increasing participation in our local elections. With that, I will look to Amanda Melillo for an update on the progress of an online voter registration system that the CFB has been tasked with building.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Amanda Melillo. I'm the Deputy Director of Public Affairs at the New York City Campaign Finance Board. And I just want to give you an update on a bill that passed towards the end of last year that would require the Campaign Finance Board to create a system of online voter registration. I think as most of you know, New York does provide online voter registration, but only if you are a DMV customer. So this is something that leaves out a lot of New Yorkers who rely on mass transit and have no need to use the DMV. I always tell people it took me 9 years of living here to get my driver's license, transferred from out of state, and I know many in that bucket exist as well. So under the legislation passed by the City Council, we would create an application for online voter registration and also collect electronic signatures, which is sort of a cutting edge thing that we're doing because not many states actually accept electronic signatures outside of departments of motor vehicles. So we would accept these signatures from voters who are registering to vote by just providing the last 4 digits of their social security number, just like you can do on a paper voter registration form right now. What the law requires us to do is deliver these forms to the Board of Elections for processing. So we are required to stand something up by June of 2019. And for the past couple months, we've been doing a lot of research and outreach into other jurisdictions and talking to elections experts to get a sense of what is the best way for us to proceed. we have a number of options we could pursue when it comes to deciding what kinds of electronic signatures we will accept. But the law as drafted very closely adheres to an informal advisory opinion from the state attorney general, requiring that signatures be of a similar quality and likeness to what people would submit on a voter registration form if they are writing out their signature by hand. So we have been investigating what is the best option for us to do this. We've reached out to other jurisdictions and states that do accept electronic signatures. So far, I think we've only spoken to Delaware, although we are chasing down Washington, D.C. and Pennsylvania. And we've also reached out to Kansas and Missouri as well. And those are really the only states that are doing this right now, although I do expect over the next few years this is a direction that election administration is certainly going to be moving in. So we are sort of on the vanguard of that. We've also spoken to experts around the country, including at the Open Source Elections Technology Foundation, at the Center for Civic Design, and we just had someone from Democracy Works in our office the other day, talking through some of the various challenges that we're going to have to think through before we release something to the public. So I will say in the past couple of months, what we've primarily been focused on is figuring out that signature component. But as we move forward, we are going to be exploring a number of different things that we want to keep in mind to make this as user-friendly as possible and to make sure that only eligible voters are registering to vote. So a number of things that have come up in our conversations are, accessibility concerns. We are required to make this a sort of mobile-friendly platform. We are looking at doing a mobile responsive design, but a challenge is the more mobile you go, the less accessible those sites can sometimes be. So we certainly plan to reach out to advocates and figure out some ways that we can make this as accessible as possible. We are looking into translating into, I believe, 16 languages, because right now we have forms in 5 languages under city law and the Voting Rights Act. We worked with the mayor's office in 2016 to translate into 11 additional languages, so we would make this available in all of those. A number of groups have raised concerns about ensuring that we don't inadvertently register non-citizens to vote, but we also, don't make it off-putting for people from communities with high numbers of non-citizens or new Americans. So that's something we've gotten advice from the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, and we're going to continue to have dialogues with them as well. So there are a number of things we're considering as we start to put this together and really talk through how to build it. And it's a very exciting time, and I'm happy to take questions.
So happy.
So I know there were some concerns from the State Board of Elections. Have those been addressed?
So I can give you an update on where that stands from our perspective, which is sort of in limbo. So the City Board of Elections had asked the State Board of Elections about whether they should accept forms with electronic signatures. Because right now, the Board of Elections position is that the only valid signatures that they can accept on voter registration are wet signatures. So they're signatures written in ink. The exception for this is, of course, the DMV, which is the only agency in New York State that is a custodial agency for electronic signatures. The Attorney General was asked for that informal opinion last year and came to the conclusion that state election law actually does allow for electronic signature collection. I think we're still in a bit of legal limbo here because the 4 commissioners at the State Board of Elections came back divided about whether or not these are acceptable. And the State Board of Elections the City Board of Elections is now considering it. So we continue to reach out to them to see how we can best work together because we want to ensure that, we are providing a registration process that is seamless for citizens and that these people are actually getting onto the rolls once they use our application. And we think this has a potential to register a lot of people. I mean, we're crunching our analysis for the voter assistance report right now. There are over 700,000 citizens in New York that are not registered to vote. Wouldn't it be easy if we could just send them all a postcard and say, hey, like, we have this online registration platform you can use so easily. So that's something we continue to work with the Board of Elections about and think through with a number of stakeholders.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any consideration in all of the tremendous amount of work that you're already doing, congratulations, regarding no excuse absentee voting?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would say that's something we support. And actually, we do need an amendment to the state constitution to be able to do it. New York is one of only a handful of states right now that does require some form of excuse to be able to vote by mail. A majority of states around the country either allow all voting by mail or partial voting by mail or no excuse absentee. This is an area where we are behind. So I think that, allowing voters more flexibility is part of any comprehensive election reform package.
But that particular issue isn't really being discussed right now. Is that it? I don't mean by you. I mean by people who could actually make it happen.
I do feel like it isn't being discussed as much, and perhaps that's because there is an additional legislative hurdle of needing to change the state constitution. And New York doesn't even have early voting yet, although maybe we will get early voting this year. We continue to hope. So in my mind, it's very much like early voting is step one because it only requires a bill to pass the legislature, which we know is challenging. And then absentee voting or no excuse absentee is sort of step two, because then you need a bill to clear successive legislatures and then be put on the ballot for voters to decide upon. So it is a much steeper hurdle. Yeah. I will say, at least in regards to online registration, I mean, one of the things we're talking about is really how we can build in ways to communicate with voters and to follow up with them. That's something we do now when we collect voter registration forms from folks in the field. I mean, we do collect contact information, but we also make a note of who indicates that they want an absentee ballot. And then when we have been calling them at election time and we find out that people are outside of the city, we actually sort of change how we do outreach to them the next time around. And we do outreach earlier and say, hey, you're out of the city. Do you need an absentee ballot? So that's something I think we're continually refining. How do we conduct that outreach and make sure that people who can vote absentee are actually getting their absentee ballots? Because we know that does not consistently happen.
Thank you again for all your work.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Thank you. And do we have someone who will be giving a report for the executive director?
Yes. Me.
Oneida.
Oneida.
Okay, please.
So good evening. On behalf of Amy Lopress, I'm happy to share some comments that she has left behind. The small donor public matching fund system administered by the Campaign Finance Board has long been a protection against the influence of big money in city politics, and we welcome more voices to this important conversation. It's gratifying to see the mayor make a public commitment to voter engagement, especially to involving young people more actively in our civic life. We welcome his engagement and involvement in this work. And clearly our executive director couldn't be with us because she is attending the State of the City address. I will move then quickly into my comments. And I'll say, at some point I had to say, wait a minute, is today Wednesday, Thursday? No, it's only Tuesday. What an exciting week it's been already.
Every week.
That's every week for you, huh?
Ever since this past election.
there you go. I will say, so yesterday, of course, we got the news about Governor Cuomo, and I was able, with the agency, we released a comment. Today, we commend Governor Cuomo for including funding for early voting in his state budget. We are thrilled that the governor has taken this key step towards ensuring all New Yorkers can easily and conveniently exercise one of the most sacred rights of citizenship. But work is not done. Voters need to make sure this momentum for reform keeps rolling. So we invited everyone to go to Vote Better New York and to add their name to our petition and to speak up for automatic voter registration and voting rights protections. So from there, I will say that the work that has been done, and I'm going to ask both Sabrina and Sean to join us up front as well, is truly a reflection. And I'm so very happy because as Sabrina comes up and she's going to be talking about Voter Day, what we're really talking about is 5 years of participation, of going to Albany with this new concept of understanding, one, that all electoral reform has to start at the state level, and that the people who need to take that message there also are everyday New Yorkers and how it reflects them. And that was the first time that they really started to have that level of conversation with members of the public. So we're happy, and we were very happy to share with our partners and the many volunteers, who were hundreds and hundreds at this point, who have gone to Albany over the past 5 years, that it led to this. And of course, that Mazeda was there also and continues to have conversations at the state level. But that we feel that the work of the agency, its partners, and its volunteers helped to result in the announcement that was on yesterday. And we're hoping, as Amanda said, that it really yields what we are hoping for very soon. Next, I would like to share that we are preparing our annual report that is due on April 30th. So the public affairs team is all hands on deck preparing that. So we have a calendar that we're going to submit to this committee in advance, so you'll have it to review. And then right after it is released on April 30th, we will have a public hearing for that report as by charter mandate on May 4th. And that is the next time that we meet as well. This weekend, I will be attending the Black, Puerto Rican, and Asian Caucus Weekend, where I will participate on a panel for voting rights and census. So with that said, I'd like the staff to go through some of the efforts that are coming up.
Good evening. I'm Sabrina Castillo. I'm the Voter Assistance Manager, and I'm going to be giving an update on Voter Day. So, Vote Better NY has officially launched their petition. You can see it on votebetterny.org, right? Yeah. And we'll be sending out individual emails to yourselves, where we're going to encourage you to share it with your network and anywhere where you feel that we can promote the link. Just to give you an update on that, we have 249 people to date that have signed it, and our goal is to get 5,000 people to sign the petition by May 8th, which is when Voter Day is happening, and we're going to go up to Albany. It's our 5th year. Us going to Albany, and we are going to be going up there with constituents. I want to say an estimate about 150 people, but the engagement and excitement around Voter Day is increasing. And after some short meetings today, it seems like we might have upwards of over 200 people joining us. So that's exciting. Currently, we have some key partners already involved who have been a part of it last year, such as NYPIRG, Dominicanos, the North Manhattan Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, I'm sorry, I'm not reading here. So Dalton High School, which is actually considering also bringing up their own bus, the New York City Veterans Alliance, CUNY, City University, New York, the Student Senate, the NAACP Midtown, and we also have the Alpha Kappa Alpha Delta Rho Omega, right? Yes. Wanted to make sure I said that right. And so we already have those key partners in. We're expecting to probably get upwards of probably like another 10 to 15 partners who will join us and will encourage their constituents to join us. But last year we had a really great turnout with our volunteer recruitment that Sean did. So we are hoping to also just get a bus full of individual concerned citizens who really want to support our agenda, which is early voting, the Voter Empowerment Act, the New York Vote Act, and pre-clearance. So that's our current update. And so we're all hands are on deck to be able to get up there on May 8th and continue to push for this reform. As Onita said, we're excited that the governor has made this announcement, but there's still work that needs to be done to make sure that it happens and passes. Any questions?
Yeah, Sabrina, how can groups get involved, or how can individuals partake in the trip to Albany?
Yeah, so I can send out an email where people can sign up. Currently, we are in our phase 1 recruitment with partners who have been active, but I'm happy to share on how to do that so that you can share it. And then anybody who's interested, I can send them information. But we will be having a general event page where people who really just want to support us and are passionate about this can also sign up as individuals, not being necessarily linked to an organization. So there'll be multiple ways of signing up, but the event page, once it's up and ready, I'm happy to send over. And if there's any organizations that you want to recommend that we want to make an official partner to support us, we have different levels of participation. So you can support Vote Better NY. You don't have to necessarily mean that you're going to be joining us in Albany, but we do have a big push to do via social media and the petition. Like I said, our goal is 5,000 by May 8th, and I'm confident that with everyone's support, we'll be able to reach that well in advance.
Is there a particular piece of legislation that you're going to be, I know that we've done that in the past, that we're going to be advocating for, that the governor has already said that he'll fund something, but is there a particular piece of legislation in both chambers that would meet that requirement?
So currently our goal is to put our efforts behind early voting. And then there's the news that came out yesterday. But early voting is where we are. So that's in the Senate, that's Bill 7400, and the Assembly is 2064. In the Senate is 7400, and the Assembly is 2064. And I can email out the petition to you so you have all the information for each bill. And we are currently also updating our materials. So we'll have new materials for Voter Day that's going to be emailed out as well.
And at New York Vote Better New York, is there going to be a link that it just appears there when you have the event page up to be able to sign up?
Yes.
Excuse me, to go? Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you. I'm Sean O'Leary. I'm the field coordinator with NYC Votes. Since our last meeting, I was invited by the NYC Veterans Alliance, an organization that you may remember testified in December before this very committee, to hold a training for their workshop on February 3rd, making changes in New York City government. I'm happy to say the workshop was well attended and was a success. I'd like to thank them for inviting NYC Votes and for joining us on Voter Day. They'll be bringing volunteers and coming themselves. I'd also like to bring your attention to some upcoming initiatives that NYC Votes will be doing in the upcoming weeks. The first is in March. We will be working with Girl Scout Troop 6000, which is a troop dedicated to young girls living in shelters. We'll be doing an engagement workshop with them and doing a voter registration initiatives in 3 shelters in the week of March 11th. In April, we will be holding a day of action focused on voter registration targeting the livery and cab industry. And I'm sure, as you're all aware, there is a special election on the Tuesday, April 24th, for 11 districts around the state, 4 of which are in New York, and we will be holding activities and supporting events for these elections, for this election. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you. I'll take any questions. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anita, I actually had a question for you. You mentioned that you were going to be speaking on at caucus weekend on on voting rights and the census. Has CFB written to the Department of Commerce regarding the efforts or the proposal to require citizenship to be a part of the census application?
We have not.
Okay.
But do you have a position on it?
We do not.
I think it should be included because it's going to. I don't think.
Oh, I'm sorry, my phone isn't on. Sorry. Do you have a recommendation?
I don't think the citizenship question should be included because I think it's going to suppress the number of people who fill out the census form. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights recently submitted a letter, as have numerous elected officials from across the country, urging the Department of Commerce not to do this and I think for New York City in particular, this would be especially challenging because already we are undercounted when it comes to the census. And this would just create a further burden and thus, has an impact from apportionment and redistricting to the allocation of resources and formulas. So this would be a tremendously adverse impact, which may be a part of the reason why they're trying to do this, quite candidly. They want to, shift funding and resources from, urban and democratic communities.
Right. Do any of the other members have an opinion on this?
It completely ignores reality.
Yeah.
It would completely ignore reality not to include people in the census who actually live in the place where you're counting.
Well, I think the concern is that asking about citizenship would mean
would
that
frighten
people.
Right, but that's
exactly.
but what I'm but
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah,
ultimate
exactly.
the ultimate outcome is if you're asking people, I can only count you in the census if you tell me you're a citizen. You're scaring people, and you're also ignoring the reality of how many people live in a place, and maybe they've already applied for citizenship and they're waiting to hear, or they haven't had their court date, they haven't been. It's just too many variables.
And if I should add something, one of the goals of certain elements in society is in voting rights litigation, to count citizens. And this is their way of achieving that, because obviously, their long-term strategies, like in the last redistricting case that they did, they proposed, in fact, that instead of voting age population, that you'd use the criteria of citizen.
So, I think it would be a good idea
Right.
for CFB to take a position opposing what is happening or what the proposal is. And the reality is, from a constitutional perspective, it doesn't say citizens, it says persons. Mm-hmm. And so, which has its own history. And so it's something that I think we should be very cognizant of and be vocal about.
I completely agree. Yeah.
Well, with that said, do we want to make a motion or take a vote?
I think a vote should
That's an excellent idea. So,
Mayor?
is there a motion?
So I move that, recommend that the Campaign Finance Board send a letter to the Department of Commerce urging them not to include citizenship. I have to check on the timing issue. I suspect it's still open for comment, but just checking on that.
But didn't the person who was supposed to be the census person, didn't they withdraw recently? The candidate for the Census Bureau? Yes, he withdrew. So,
Is there a second?
Yeah.
no,
All in favor?
Who was the second?
Aye. It was
Okay, Danielle.
Danielle.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so all in favor? Aye. All opposed? All abstentions? It carries unanimously.
Of those here.
Awesome.
It doesn't be a slow meeting.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
You never know. Okay.
So are there any, is there any public testimony? Okay. Then I think that concludes our business for tonight. So thank you, and we are reconvening, is it May
4th?
4th.
But
May
that's a
4th.
Friday. Is that the date?
May 4th?
That
Is that
right?
right?
Yeah,
Maybe I'm saying it wrong.
Is May 4th a Friday?
Yeah.
What?
It's May 2nd? I'm sorry.
May
It
2nd.
is May 2nd, and you're right, it is a Friday.
Hold an Oneida account.
That's right.
I have a note that that's a public hearing.
Yes.
Well, okay.
Okay,
So
yes,
we
I
will
do
be
too.
presenting the annual report, your annual report.
Our annual.
Our
Yes, there you go.
annual
There you go.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't think we've taken a vote in a long